呀，
对，抓脖子，别抓！
没事，随便抓一个地方把它揪出来就行。哎呀，终于救出来了！
我终于把它救出来了！哇，好快呀！
哇，恭喜啊！
我终于给它救出来了！不要抹嘴，
别怕啊，宝宝。哎呀，不怕。
这就是缘分。
A group of 3 men and their dog named Erbao undertook a difficult and emotional mission to rescue a stray puppy trapped deep inside a rock crevice. They discovered that there were 3 stray puppies, one of which had already died from starvation. Using sticks, boards, and their combined strength, they spent several hours trying to move giant rocks, some weighing up to a ton, to reach the trapped puppy. With the help of Erbao, who helped lure the hidden puppy out, they finally succeeded. The rescued puppy was given food, comfort, and a warm box to rest in, marking the beginning of a new life filled with hope and love. They heard about a stray dog stuck in a rock crevice, so they brought ham sausages and chicken feet to try and help. After asking around, they found the crevice next to a stainless steel pipe near the reeds. One of them climbed down to check. Sadly, one of the dogs had already died from starvation. There were more dogs trapped deep inside the rocks, but they wouldn't come out even when food was tossed in. After hours of trying, they decided to send in their dog, Erbao. As soon as Erbao got close, the hidden puppy started to bark. That gave them hope. Working carefully and with great effort, they used sticks, boards, and brute strength to move enormous rocks, some easily weighing a ton.
小心脚啊！动了，用力！
这边发力吧。哪边？这边，你来这里，你等这个，一起啊！1、2、3，1、2、3。
哦，我天呀！最好是往那个方向。可以。好了，现在这里清理的差不多了，就把下面的这块板砖、大岩石把它拉开就行了。就看这个能不能成功了。如果这个能成功的话，下面这个小狗今天就有救了。耗费了几个小时了，就为了救这只小狗。
一点的走啊，
慢点你的脚。
没事。我们一点弄。好，先别动了。
可以了。
然后咱们往那推。行。
After a long struggle and dangerous maneuvering,
抓着，硬抓着。
they managed to create a gap big enough to pull the puppy out.
哎呀，
对，抓脖子，别抓。
没事，随便抓一个地方把它揪出来就行。哎呀，终于救出来了！
我终于把它救出来了！哇，好快呀！
哇，恭喜啊！
我终于给它救出来了！不要抹嘴，
别怕啊，宝宝。哎呀，宝宝，
这就是缘分，还是个小公狗啊！
尾巴还是翘的，费了9牛2虎之力，终于把它。
The moment they rescued the little dog, joy and relief filled the air. The puppy was a male, still wagging his tail despite being weak and scared. The man said he had long dreamed of adopting a stray dog since he was in Tibet, but never found the right one until now in Yunnan. It felt like destiny. After feeding him, they placed the puppy in a cardboard box with a soft pillow to keep him warm. A local rice noodle shop owner even spent the entire afternoon helping them and provided supplies. They bought puppy food and warm milk, soaked the food to soften it, and the puppy ate everything in one go, clearly starving. After rescuing the little dog, he decided to take it along on his journey. He built it a makeshift shelter, padded with whatever he had. Once he reached Shangri-La, he planned to send some winter clothes back, reorganize his belongings, and make a basket or cage to tie behind the bicycle, so it would be easier to carry the puppy. Before setting off, he decided to go back and visit the puppy's sibling. There had originally been 3 puppies. One had died of hunger, one was now with him, and the last had been adopted by the owner of a noodle shop nearby. That day, he brought his puppy back so they could meet one last time. The other puppy had the same strange habit, crawling into tight crevices. Perhaps it had lived in the rocks for too long. Now, it looked much better. Its spirit was brighter and its eyes clearer. He reminded himself to go online and order some medication, deworming pills, and basic care supplies. Then he let his own puppy play with its sibling. The two tumbled together, close as if they'd never been separated. He stood there watching, breathing out a quiet sigh. This might be the last time they'd ever see each other. He smiled and said that maybe someday he'd come back. But deep down he knew, traveling alone, he couldn't care for another dog. He already had one by his side, and he still had to manage his shop and look after daily life. If someone with a kind heart ever came across the other pup, when it was healthy again, hoped they would take it in. He told the shop owner, "If someone adopts it, please let me know." The shop sat right along National Highway 214, called Shucheng Lamb Noodle Shop. Anyone passing by could stop in for electricity, water, or just a kind place to rest. The owner welcomed travelers warmly. That day, he bought a few vegetables, preparing for the next stretch, from Fat Sun to Meili Snow Mountain. Another day of climbing uphill awaited. He had worried the puppy wouldn't be comfortable in the backpack. But to his surprise, it lay quietly inside, almost falling asleep. Looking at it, he thought, "I want to journey with you through this long life." Along the road, he stopped to let the dog out, in case it needed to go to the bathroom, to stretch a bit and to soak up some sun. He said gently, "Come out for a bit, move around, get some sunshine." In the morning, he woke up, his back still feeling a bit of warmth from last night's sleep. He mumbled to himself, Sleeping here last night was surprisingly comfortable. Oh my. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw a familiar yet suspicious scene. His clothes had been pulled off, and his slippers had mysteriously vanished. He glanced over at the culprit lying sprawled out, the mischievous little puppy. "Hey, you little rascal, who gave you permission to drag my stuff around?" "Wake up! Who did this?" he grumbled while gently nudging its head. "No more biting, got it? You're not supposed to chew on stuff, understand?" The puppy was still sleepy, but its eyes sparkled, receiving every word of his loving scolding. He tidied up briefly and checked his bag. Luckily, it hadn't been peed on. "No more chewing on clothes, all right? Remember that." He gave the puppy breakfast, gently coaxing it to sit still. After eating, the little one dashed off somewhere again. He shook his head. "You trying to give me a heart attack or what?" Getting ready to hit the road, he went through his gear one last time. By 11 a.m., after packing everything up, he spent over half an hour playing with it. Just like a child, plays a bit then immediately falls back asleep. The sky was growing cloudier. He decided to return to the nearby town to get the puppy dewormed. "Don't like sleeping on the ground, huh? Or are you just too picky about the little nest I made last night?" They set off on a steep uphill journey toward the observation point at Pillai Temple. He knew it would be tough. The slope was steep, so he chose a longer, winding route that would be easier to cycle. "If I can't ride it, I'll push it." Not long after, he was drenched in sweat. Behind him was a slope, and ahead was another. He had to stop and let the puppy drink some water. "All right, drink up and then go back to sleep in the cart. And don't forget, every time you get out, you need to pee." After more than 3 hours of uphill climbing, he still hadn't reached the top. The winding road kept rising, but at last, he arrived at the observation deck facing Mealy Snow Mountain. There, a coffee vendor offered him a cup. "Thanks. I wouldn't have made it up here without those bottles of water you gave me." The wind began to pick up. He pushed on for another 3 kilometers before stopping. The wind was too strong. Cycling became nearly impossible. He decided to turn back and try again tomorrow. The 14-kilometer uphill journey was now downhill with the wind at his back, making time fly. It's exhausting, but the view is absolutely breathtaking. On the way back, he met a fellow cyclist who gave him 3 eggs and 5 packs of instant noodles. The water at the nearby public toilet was frozen. He decided to spend the night there with the new companion, cook noodles, and prepare to climb again the next morning. He boiled water and got some food ready for the puppy. In a clumsy moment, he dropped its bowl and the noise woke it up. It crawled out of its little nest like an eager child excited for dinner. He gave it half a boiled egg yolk. Don't eat too much and you'll pop. The puppy licked the bowl clean. As for him, he finally began his noodle dinner. He pitched his tent beside the public restroom, carefully blocking out the wind. Now's sleeping spot was built into a cozy, windproof little nest. He also made sure the pup couldn't wander off too close to the road. All his bags were stacked around its sleeping area to block the breeze. Once everything was settled, he smiled, watching the little puppy sleep soundly. Just like a baby. Sleep well now. Tomorrow we journey on. It was 7:30 in the morning. It had rained all night. A thick fog covered everything. But he wasn't worried. The place where he had pitched his tent yesterday had a roof, so things weren't too damp. Though it was a bit noisy, he had slept soundly. Throughout the night, he got up a few times to check on Now. Everything was fine. The rain had eased a little. He looked at the sleepy little dog and gently said, "Time to get up, we'll be leaving soon." As he started packing, Now became anxious, afraid of being left behind. "Don't worry," he reassured, "I won't leave you." No need to panic. This was where he had camped yesterday. The wind had been too strong to enjoy the view of the snowy mountains. Today he was determined to move forward. With his gear packed and ready to be loaded onto the bike, he turned to feed Now breakfast. "You must be hungry, huh?" "But just a little. You can't eat too much." Now never seemed to realize how special the chicken treats were. He ate them eagerly every time, so the man was careful not to give him too much, worried it might upset his stomach. As long as there was plenty of water, a little at a time would be fine. "Did you sleep well last night?" he asked, though Now was too focused on eating to answer. While the dog was busy, he picked up the trash. "Wherever you go," he said to himself, "leave only your footprints. Take everything else away." He wiped Now's face, cleaned the sleep from his eyes, wiped his paws and checked the bike. The public restrooms nearby were locked, all of them. He had cleaned up the campsite the day before and was ready to set off again, even though it had started raining once more. Luckily, there was no wind. He put on a jacket that had once kept him dry while cycling in. Tibet, his old raincoat, had gone missing. It was perfect for the rain today. He pulled the hood tight, which helped block out both the wind and the sound of raindrops. The journey resumed. On National Highway 214, rain meant falling rocks from the mountains. It was more dangerous than any other road he'd taken. He spotted an eagle overhead, gliding between heavy clouds. The snowy peaks were hidden today. "Just 3 meals a day, why suffer so much?" he muttered. "Let go, understand love and not love. A gentle smile is enough. Simple and slow. If you run too fast, you'll fall." He searched for a spot where Now could relieve himself. After a few attempts, he found a solid place. When they were done, he sighed in relief. But the weather worsened. What was rain at the base of the mountain turned to snow at the summit. Ice clung to his jacket and backpack. "Oh no," he whispered. 2 kilometers left. Then just 500 meters. He pushed on. Finally, streetlights came into view. He had made it. His clothes were soaked through. His bicycle was covered in snow. It had rained during the climb and snowed near the top. This is real snow, he thought. He was invited to eat by an older man he met there, local chicken and fresh buns. "I'm not cooking today. Too tired." "Haven't eaten all day," he said with a laugh. Though exhausted, he couldn't refuse when the man offered him a beer. "Just one," he grinned. They decided to stay there for the night. Now isn't fat or thin, just about 5 kilograms, he said proudly. Always been like that. Later, he used the hotel's towels to dry Now off. The cold was biting, so he ordered hot noodle soup. "Do you have vegetables?" he asked. He ended up ordering noodles, rice noodles, and a few side dishes. After not eating all day, he devoured a whole basket of buns. So cold. From morning till late afternoon, they had trekked from the base of the mountain all the way to the Philae observation deck, the last few kilometers were in snow. At the hotel, he turned on the room heater to dry his shoes, clothes, and Now's backpack. The inside layers were dry, but the outer ones soaked. The room cost 100 yuan, and it had charging outlets. Not bad at all. He let Now use the bathroom, reminding him not to pee on the carpet, but on the mat. "Go where I laid the mat, okay?" After a full day of climbing, he was completely drained. A hot shower awaited. "Good night, everyone," he whispered as he lay down to rest. At present, he was at Philae Temple in Diking Prefecture, Yunnan. This was a famous spot to view Meili Snow Mountain. But unfortunately, the weather hadn't cooperated. He had climbed up the mountain for 2 days, yet still hadn't caught a glimpse of Meili's true appearance. Fog blanketed the landscape, making everything look like a wonderland. When he arrived yesterday, heavy snow had been falling. He stayed at a hotel that cost 100 yuan per night, quite affordable. Considering the surrounding places charged 300 to 400. Today, he planned to move on and head to Diking County, the first county town in Yunnan. Initially, he had thought about resting for the day. Traveling in the rain didn't sound pleasant. However, the cost of staying at Philae Temple was too high. After all, it was a tourist attraction. So high accommodation and food prices were to be expected. After considering everything, he decided to make his way to the county. He had something important to do there. Find a pet store to deworm Now and get him vaccinated. But visibility that day was extremely poor. He thought to himself, if you want to see Meili Snow Mountain, it's best to come after mid-April. In early April, especially around Qingming Festival, it rains almost daily and the fog makes it impossible to see anything. The road going downhill was finally ahead, but he didn't dare ride too fast. It was dangerously slippery. Eventually, he arrived in Diking County. But the entire town was full of steep uphill and downhill roads. He searched online for a pet clinic and, although there were no dedicated pet stores, he did find the local animal disease control center. They helped him deworm Now there. What a relief. A friendly woman at the clinic explained the process. They provided both an internal and an external deworming medicine, one to be ingested, and one to be applied to the skin using a syringe. He was very grateful. The deworming procedure was simple, though it was his first time doing it. He was taught to apply the medicine behind Now's ears. The dog fidgeted a little but cooperated. "Don't move, don't lick it," he instructed gently. The medicine had a pig on the packaging, which made him worry at first. But after checking with the customer service, he was told it was safe for both cats and dogs. With reassurance, he mixed the internal medicine into Now Now's dog food. "Not too much," he reminded himself. "A little bit is enough." Now Now was starving and gobbled the food up like a piglet. "No one's stealing it from you," he said with a chuckle. "Slow down." The food was gone in no time, leaving the bowl spotless. He himself didn't cook that day. Too tired. He ordered 2 takeout meals instead. One was Yuxiang shredded pork with rice. That would be his lunch. He also bought a bowl of beef rice noodles for later. "Since I'm in Yunnan, I have to try the rice noodles," he told himself. The rice dish had gone cold, so he was glad the noodles were served with hot soup. There was plenty of beef, and it looked delicious. He took a bite. It was as good as it looked. After the meal and the deworming, Now curled up and fell asleep like a child, peaceful, clean, and warm. Daking County was located in a mountain basin. To leave town, he had to face a steep uphill climb. His bike was heavy and overloaded, so he had to get off and push. Today, he continued his journey, heading toward Shangri-La City. Among all the places he had traveled through, Daking County had the most steep uphill and downhill roads, extremely steep. In fact, but the weather was beautiful today. In the distance, the snow-covered mountains appeared clearly under the sunlight. Before setting off, he stopped by a shop to buy a caddy of meat and asked the shop owner to cut it for him. He also bought some vegetables and fruits. Everything was now fully prepared. He was ready to go. The carrier bag he used was now a bit too small. Now, his dog, had grown and didn't want to stay inside anymore. The pup's head stuck out from the bag, while vegetables and water bottles were tied to the sides. He tried his best to organize the load, but the handlebars couldn't hold much. And with so many things packed, the bike felt heavier and heavier. Just 2 days ago, he had climbed Meili Snow Mountain. Today, as he left Daking County, he would have to cross Whitehorse Snow Mountain, another day of intense climbing. So far, he had only managed to ascend 1/3 of the Whitehorse Snow Mountain. On the highway, he passed by a row of roadside houses. He stopped to check if he could rest there. In truth, these roadside spots were acceptable for camping, but he worried it might rain. So he tried to find proper shelter. A little further along, he saw a big rooster standing near a house. He went to ask, but the place was locked and seemed uninhabited. He moved on. Eventually, he found a decent spot to rest, right at the entrance of a tunnel, near a highway maintenance station. There was an empty tin shack nearby. He figured if he couldn't find anything better, he would sleep there. But if he found something safer, he'd move. He began unpacking and arranging his belongings. Now was still asleep. He gently woke the dog. "Wake up, we're home now." He debated whether to cook first or pitch the tent. In the end, he decided to cook. He had prepared all the ingredients: meat, eggplant, rice. Tonight, he planned to make stir-fried eggplant with pork and have it with braised rice. While cooking, he also boiled half an egg yolk for Now Now, mixing it with dog food and feeding the pup first. "It's okay, don't be afraid," he said softly. As the meat was nearly done, he added the eggplant and covered the pot to keep it warm. "It's ready, time to eat." Now Now didn't beg for food or try to snatch anything. He just lay quietly and watched. While the man ate, the dog slept peacefully beside him. That quiet companionship filled him with calm. After dinner, he crawled into the tent to rest. Tonight, he brought Now Now inside to sleep together, afraid the dog would get too cold outside. "Sleep now," he murmured. He knew he needed to rest early. Tomorrow, he would climb over White Horse Snow Mountain. "Good night, everyone." That morning, he woke up in the tin house where he had camped the night before. He had slept very comfortably, and his little dog, Now Now, had just woken up as well. "Was it cold?" he asked, then answered himself. It was hot, not cold at all. He began packing his belongings. Now Now lay obediently on top of his backpack, calm and quiet. Once everything was neatly packed, and the camping area was cleaned up, he was ready to continue the journey with his little companion. It was drizzling slightly. He resumed his climb, heading toward Bima Snow Mountain. He hoped to cross it today and reach Town, a small town in Shangri-La County. Along the way, the weather shifted constantly. Sunshine one moment, rain the next, with an occasional chill in the air. The scenery along the route was breathtaking, but he no longer had the mood to fully enjoy it. Up ahead was another steep uphill stretch. He kept pushing his bike forward. Snow still blanketed the mountains. By now, he was already at an altitude of around 4,000 meters. Rain fell at the foot of the mountain, but higher up, snow began to fall. He came across an abandoned shelter near the mountain trail, where there was still some dry firewood left. He decided to cook his dinner there using a wood stove. He washed the meat, chopped some white radish, and began preparing dinner: stir-fried pork with radish and steamed rice. Another young woman happened to be camping nearby. She was traveling alone and had just pitched her tent. She came over to say hello and offered to share dinner. He told her, "No need to cook anything. I've already prepared it, just grab a bowl." They shared a simple meal in the chilly mountain air. He cooked pork with radish, adding a bit of spicy chili. The girl teased, "Why are there green beans in it?" "It's not beans, it's chili," he replied, laughing. He scooped some food for her and reminded her to eat a bit less, as he still needed to save some for his dog. "That's enough," she said politely. "I don't eat much." The three of them, he, the girl, and little Now Now, ate together. "Eat more and stay warm," he said kindly. Now Now also munched quietly on his own portion of dog food, mixed with rice and meat. Later that night, he brought Now Now into the tent to sleep. He was worried the little pup might get too cold if left outside. The tent was set up properly, warm and quiet inside. Now Now curled up and quickly fell into a deep sleep. The girl had gone into her own tent as well, which was pitched close by in the stillness of the mountain night. He had heard about her before. She had been mentioned in the news, a young woman traveling solo across China. He hadn't expected to meet her here on National Highway 214. The temperatures had been very low these days. He hoped to reach Shangri-La soon, where the weather would be warmer. After checking his things, he lay down and got ready for bed. That morning, he thanked the girl next to him and wished her a safe journey. She was also just about to leave. He asked, "Have you eaten breakfast yet?" She replied that she usually didn't eat in the morning and planned to walk a bit before resting. He stood by Lao Lulu's tent, another traveling companion. Noting the big temperature difference between inside and outside the tent, he looked up at the sky. Wow, what a beautiful day. Nearly everything was already packed. A full box of instant noodles was carefully wrapped. He smiled and said thanks, then reminded his friend Xiaomi to stay safe as she hit the road. They parted ways in the fresh air of the highlands. Chesha, another friend, also departed. She was heading to Lhasa. As for him, he had already left Lhasa behind, now venturing into Yunnan. His tent was almost dry under the sun, and he too was getting ready to leave. He was a man named Dream, alone. With one bicycle and one dog, he was riding across Yunnan. When he first entered this region, he thought he'd immediately feel the warmth of summer. But unexpectedly, the two snow-capped giants, Meili Snow Mountain and Baima Snow Mountain, were still waiting ahead, and the weather remained either rainy or snowy every day. It was rare to have such good weather like today. He cleaned up the campsite and prepared to move on, aiming to reach the next town to rest and resupply. Since leaving Deakin County, most of the food he bought had already been consumed. Now, his little dog, also seemed to know today's weather was nice. It lay down to sleep with its head sticking out, basking in the sunlight. He let the dog relax in a spacious empty lot. But Now hadn't done its business yet. He had searched several times for the right spot, but hadn't found a suitable one. After playing for a while, the dog went back to sleep. Still, it hadn't relieved itself that day. So he decided to ride on for another 10 kilometers and then try again. He enjoyed the 23-kilometer downhill ride immensely. He stopped at an observation deck, bought some snacks, and took a break. The sun was shining brightly. "Feeling good under the sun?" he asked his dog, who lazily stretched out. Across the road were majestic snow-capped peaks, a breathtaking view. A soft song echoed in his mind as he enjoyed the moment. After eating some dry food to settle his stomach, he continued on. It was a day of continuous descent. From over 4,000 meters at Baima Snow Mountain down to Benzalan town, now at just 2,100 meters. He stopped at a small shop, bought a few essentials, and asked the owner for some water. With vegetables and water ready, he searched for a spot to camp. The wind picked up, so he looked for a place sheltered from the breeze. While riding along National Highway 214, he spotted a small shed near the Jinsha River. It offered some protection from rain and snow, so he decided to set up camp there. The view was stunning, even if the wind was a bit strong. He secured the tent with stakes and prepared the sleeping area. Tonight, he and Now would rest here. Next to the tent, he laid out a space for the dog, pinning the ground sheet to avoid drafts and ensuring the dog had room to move around. That evening, he cooked stir-fried kohlrabi with tomatoes. As he was frying, he gently told the eager dog, "Just a moment, I'll pour your dog food after this." Now gobbled up his meal quickly. The dish, simple vegetables, no meat, was still aromatic and satisfying. When he stepped outside the tent, the dog was still sound asleep. He picked it up and brought it back in to sleep together. After cleaning the pan, he arranged everything neatly. The night deepened, and beside the Jinsha River, the scenery was calm and poetic. The wind still blew, but it wasn't as cold as the previous nights. He hoped for a good night's sleep. Nearby, Now snored softly, lips twitching as if dreaming of food. He called himself Dream. Alone, with one bicycle and a little dog, he was traveling through Yunnan. At this moment, he had reached Nixie Township in Dikin Prefecture and was preparing to head to Shangri-La. He set off early that morning because the route was mostly uphill. The distance to Shangri-La was over 50 kilometers, with more than 30 kilometers of it being a steep climb. Exhausted from pedaling, he stopped for a break. With a laugh, he pointed the camera toward the slope that kept going endlessly upward. He had already ridden over 10 kilometers, and there was still no downhill in sight. He took out some food to replenish his energy and also fed his dog. He clipped the leash, placed the food down, and warned gently, "Don't eat too much." After the meal, the dog played happily on the roadside. Since there were very few cars passing by, he let the dog enjoy a moment of freedom. The midday sun was glaring and the heat made both of them tired. The little dog didn't want to stay in the backpack anymore, tossing and turning restlessly with its head drooping. Eventually, they reached Shangri-La. A parcel he had been waiting for had arrived. Without delay, he navigated to a nearby pet store to check on the dog's health. The wind had been howling all day, and it grew stronger as they approached the town. The store was tucked away in a narrow alley. He asked the staff about the dog's age. Based on its teeth, they said the pup was over 2 months old. Possibly around 4 months since its front teeth were already being replaced. He bought toys, snacks, and a chew stick. The shop owner even gave him extra treats for free. He asked whether he could bathe the dog, but the cold weather made it inadvisable. They recommended getting the dog vaccinated the next day, as the change in environment could affect its health. After a quick checkup, the dog was pronounced healthy. He was relieved. That evening, instead of camping, he looked for a place to stay. A woman he met earlier had recommended a hostel that cost just 28 yuan. Though inexpensive, the hostel was clean and the owner was kind. Surprisingly, the price even included dinner. There, he met a few fellow travelers who had also ridden bikes before. They chatted about their bikes and adventures. He shared how he had cycled all the way from Tibet over 4 months. Despite his gear being heavy, the bike handled well. Everyone was amazed at his journey. After resting for 3 days, he received all his parcels, including bike tires, bags, camping gear, and a new 2-person tent, since the previous one was too cramped to share with the dog. He changed the tires, reorganized his setup, and carefully strapped everything onto the bike. By the end of the afternoon, everything was ready. Tomorrow, he would continue his journey. He called himself Dream. That day was April 11th, and he was in Shangri-La. He was getting ready to leave the town, heading toward Tiger Leaping Gorge. Everything had been packed, and little Now was tucked into the front airbox, looking quite content. Before setting off, he needed to pick up a delivery and send back the cotton shoes he had worn earlier. He placed some food down for Now to eat and quietly tied him up without the dog even realizing. Then he sat down to have a meal. Himself, beef fried ramen, and made a cup of hot water. Now was clever, definitely not dumb. He even knew to hide in the shade to stay cool. With everything ready, it was time to hit the road. The distance from Shangri-La to Tiger Leaping Gorge was about 100 kilometers, and he estimated it would take around 2 days to get there. Along the way, he marveled at an enormous white stupa. It was so massive that even when he'd traveled to Tibet, he hadn't seen one that large. The weather that day was beautiful. No rain, no fog. The snow-covered mountains in the distance were clearly visible. In this part of Yunnan, yak still roamed freely. During his days in Shangri-La, it had rained almost daily. He stayed near the Dukzong ancient town, but due to the bad weather, he hadn't gone out exploring much. Besides, he felt that places like that had become overly commercialized. His head was full of dreams, taking everyone to romantic Turkey, then to Tokyo and Paris. He especially liked Miami, and Los Angeles with its vibrant black communities. But really, nothing to be too surprised about. He also dreamed of walking together through the bustling streets of Shanghai and Beijing, and revisiting Dali and Yunnan, where so many memories were made. At 4 p.m. he checked the weather forecast. That would be the warmest time of the day in Shangri-La, with the high reaching 12 degrees Celsius. Perfect weather for cycling. He was riding toward Little End Town. After buying some vegetables and fruit, he decided to camp there that night. He had also picked up a large jug of water. His handlebars were packed again. He found a clearing behind him to set up camp. The spot was right next to a construction site, and beside it was a massive parking lot. He decided to pitch his tent in the corner of the lot. Now, come here," he called. "You're hungry, aren't you?" He gave the dog a small portion of food. "Just a little for now. Don't eat too much, we still have some training to do later." Now, sit." The dog obeyed and he praised him. "Good boy, so smart. Go on, eat up." As Now ate, he quickly began setting up the tent. It looked just like his very first tent. Inside, he laid down an aluminum foil moisture-proof mat, a sleeping bag, and another pad underneath. Since it wasn't that cold anymore, this setup should be enough. He brought Now's bedding inside the tent. It was spacious and cozy. He started cooking rice. The wind was blowing earlier and still hadn't quite stopped. Luckily, the parking lot was sheltered from stronger gusts and had plenty of space. "That crazy guy keeps running around here," he said. Joking about Now, he wiped the dog down with a wet tissue. As the temperature dropped, he put a coat on the dog and laid out a mat. Now had already fallen asleep. He didn't eat dinner, probably because he had eaten too much earlier in the day. "I'll feed him later if he wakes up hungry," he thought. That night's dinner would be pork belly stir-fried with cauliflower, plus some tomatoes for flavor. Now was just here a while ago. Maybe he couldn't sleep at first, but he's quiet now, napping in the tent. Evening hadn't fully fallen yet. He hurried to finish cooking. After the rice was ready, he woke Now and let him eat. Then he lit the fire, picked the vegetables, broke the cauliflower into pieces, and added the tomatoes. They would release juice and flavor. After seasoning, dinner was done: pork belly stir-fried with cauliflower and tomatoes. It looked simple but smelled delicious. He sprinkled some scallions and scooped rice into his bowl. "Perfect rice," he said to himself as he ate. Once everything was cleaned up and packed, he got ready for bed. "This big tent really looks nice, doesn't it?" he mused. Now was still asleep, probably full from earlier. "If he gets hungry in the middle of the night, I'll feed him then," he thought. He took off his clothes and settled into his sleeping bag. At 6:30 in the morning, he woke up needing to pee. It was still dark outside. As he got up, he looked over at Now Now, who had been sleeping soundly all night. "How am I supposed to sleep while you snore away like that?" He mumbled, amused. The little dog was clearly healthy, didn't need a mattress or a soft bed, yet always managed to sleep well. The weather that morning was lovely. They had camped in that spot the day before. Everything had already been packed. He rummaged through some leftover ingredients from the hot pot they'd had the previous night, along with 3 packs of instant noodles. He was going to make a hearty breakfast for Now Now, a whole can of dog food, half for breakfast and the rest saved for dinner. He also gave the dog a full calcium tablet and poured out a small portion of kibble, letting it sit for a bit before feeding. Wait. What are you doing?" he said to Now Now, who was already trying to dive into the food. "Dog food, not wine. What are you sniffing around for?" He couldn't help but laugh. "Come here, Now Now, sit." The dog obediently sat down. He quickly went to throw out the trash, then checked everything, fully packed and ready to go. His bike looked more like a truck now, loaded with gear. He hadn't laid down the back cushion for Now because the weather was warm. Too warm, perhaps. The dog would ride in the front box this time. "Hello, everyone. I'm Dream," he said to the camera. "Today is April 13th. I'm currently in Tiger Leaping Gorge Town, Shangri-La, Yunnan." His goal for the day was to ride into the Tiger Leaping Gorge scenic area and then head toward Lijiang. He parted ways with a fellow cyclist, a chess friend, who had already been to the gorge and was riding straight to Lijiang. For him, though, it was the first visit. He couldn't skip it after coming all this way. "Dreaming in Shangri-La," he said, wandering under celestial skies. In the distance loomed the towering Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. South of Tiger Leaping Gorge lay that very mountain, while to the north stood Haba Snow Mountain. The gorge had a vertical drop of over 3,900 meters, making it one of the deepest canyons in the world. Yet its narrowest point was only about 50 meters wide, narrow enough for a tiger or leopard to leap across, hence the name Tiger Leaping Gorge. He followed the road leading to the scenic area ticket office. There were so many cars, buses, motorcycles, travelers, and all kinds of vehicles. He bought his ticket and was pleasantly surprised to learn that cyclists could ride in. "No traffic jams," he smiled. From the entrance to the scenic area, it was 6 kilometers to the Jiakou section. The uphill climb started almost immediately, and his bike was too heavy. So he came up with a clever plan. He negotiated with the owner of a small roadside shop to leave all 4 panniers there in exchange for buying a bottle of soda. With the load off, the climb became much easier and quicker. It was his first time visiting the gorge, and as he moved deeper into it, he could already hear the roar of the water. The sound of the rushing river brought a strange sense of peace. It was magnificent. By the time he finished exploring, it was already 4 p.m. He rushed back to the shop to collect his panniers and then set off toward Lijiang. He knew he wouldn't make it all the way that day, but he planned to ride as far as possible. Back at the store, he bought another drink. He paused for a meal, pepper rice in a bowl before loading up and continuing. He placed his cephalosporin medicine back in its spot on the bike and began pedaling westward, exiting the Tiger Leaping Gorge scenic area. As he left, he finally found a quiet moment to snap a photo for the memory. He was back on National Highway 214. Lijiang was still 70 kilometers away. The snow-capped mountains were clearly visible, the air crisp and fresh. He entered a large clearing near the roadside, a riverbank beside the Jinsha River. The open space looked perfect for camping, and others had also walked through the area earlier. He pitched the tent. As he worked, little Now Now snuck inside, already moving in and out of the tent like he owned the place. He gave the dog some water. Dinner that night was simple but surprisingly satisfying. He had bought 15 wen worth of pork head meat. Alongside it was a jar of sauce he had carried with him for nearly a year. He had also picked up some fresh vegetables and cleaned them for dipping. The pork head meat didn't need anything fancy, just some hot rice to go with it. He was hungry, but the rice was nearly ready, so he snuck a few bites of meat first. The rich aroma of pork, scallions, and dipping sauce filled the air. "A simple meal," he said with a smile, "but it's delicious."